I spoke with Kevin the other day. Kevin said he would just, if there was any major changes, he was just going to clue us in on that, if there was anything that needed to be addressed. Let me ask you a technical question, Kevin. Do we have to approve these one at a time, or can we approve them as a whole?
You know, I think that's really within the board's discretion.
Okay.
If they want to take it as one motion for the six of us. I think there's 5 items here under the review that are within the review piece, and then the item 6 and item 7 are different. Those are, I think that's something that Lynn would want to talk about with the board separately. Right. But in terms of the governance compliance work that we did, you know, we reviewed all the policies for compliance, and we picked on these, if you will, because these are the ones we're supposed to review every year. Okay, so in a regular cycle, which we want to be in next year, you would be looking at these again, probably in, Lynn, what did you say on the calendar? February, right? Something like that. So Lynn's done a real nice job of calendaring these kind of things for the board, so that, you know, when we roll into a new fiscal year, a new calendar year, you'll see in January, this is what the board's doing. February, March. This is the infrastructure that really wasn't here when you guys stepped in, because it was 7 new board members. So that's a tremendous amount of work. And so these particular policies are ones that we should be looking at regularly, and that's the investment policy, the procurement policy, the property disposal guidelines, and the mission statement and performance measurements. Those 4 there. The 5th one is a new thing that you guys did not have. It's called a statement of duties and responsibilities. That's right out of the statute. So the public authorities law has a provision, I think it's 2824, that says boards must have these things in place, right? So they want you to establish a base set of duties and responsibilities. And so that's maybe a 2 or 3 page document. We've developed this document with other organizations. There's nothing really fancy in it. But it's more informative than anything, right? You read them, you go, oh yeah, that's what, it makes sense, or it should, from that standpoint as to what you're doing. That's a new document that we did not have. We did not have that. We did not have that document. In terms of the other documents, you know, in terms of highlighting them, the investment policy, not a lot of changes, right? A lot of that's just technical changes that we made to that. The procurement policy, there's a few changes to that. Let me see if I can pull that up. One of them is simply that the state statute has changed for procurement. I think we had $10,000 limit and $20,000 limits. That's under the old law. Those numbers have gone up to 20 and 35. So all we're doing is modifying that number. The numbers to meet today's. Exactly. So that's one of the bigger changes in that. Let me see if I can just touch on a couple other things. You know, we added some clarifications on some procurement situations, like single source, for example, is a little different than sole source. Single source is where you have someone who is, while you can find other folks that might be able to do the job, they're already so familiar with the project that you would keep them on. So like, let's say you took a contract out with an architect, right? And they are helping you design a building, right? And then you need additional work done on that particular project. You might not want to start from scratch with a new architect. And so single source allows you to say, you know what, we're not bidding this out again. It doesn't make sense to do so. It's not practical. So we added that provision into the procurement policy. The other thing that I would point out in the procurement policy is approval thresholds, And that's at the very end of the policy. And what we tried to do here is give a little bit of leeway to the CFO to buy certain things, right? So, and we actually stuck, Lynn and I talked about this a couple times. We might have brought this up actually with the full governance committee the first time around. The $3,000 was like a number that people were comfortable with for the CFO to go and spend without having to come back to the board. Now that number is really only based on what has been the practice here, I think. You know, I think there's something out there that says that the CFO can pay an invoice if it's under $3,000, right? So this would say the same thing from a procurement standpoint. But this number can change. Like if you wanted it higher, you could change it. But as it stands now, what I tried to do is just put that in the policy and kind of stick it the way it is. But this piece is wholly discretionary. It's really for guidance for staff to know, okay, what can I spend? right?
Right.
Because it's difficult to operate in that situation, and especially if you're buying something that you're going to call a board meeting to buy something for $2,000,
Right.
or to pay the bill.
Oh, no, yeah,
right?
that makes
Right.
sense.
So that's really the thought there. And if the board wants to do something different with that number, this is just in here.
Right,
Like,
okay,
so
right, that there's nothing, nothing
There's no
legally, there's no
statutory
statute,
requirement.
right,
This-
okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so
So-
those were just arbitrary numbers that were set at one point and,
Yeah, I think we're trying to follow what was there, kind
Right.
of, so I'm just throwing that out there for you.
Okay.
So that's really the procurement policy. In terms of the property disposal guidelines, these actually needed some work
Okay.
to be in compliance with the statute. So, I made those changes. This is right out of the statute. And so when I tweaked these, I made sure that they were in compliance with the law as it stands. What had happened essentially is when these were adopted, probably in 2005, they weren't really looked at. And so when they changed the rules, those rules didn't get put back in here. So what we've done is basically conform them to the statute.
Brought everything
Okay.
up to date.
That's right. So those are that's an overview of what you're looking at there.
Okay.
The other piece we should probably talk about briefly, and I think, Lynn, you can jump in here too, on the mission statement and the
Okay.
performance measures. This is something we just didn't have, right? There were
Right.
no performance measurements. So, the mission statement is the same as was in place, that you did have. There's a mission
Okay.
statement on the website, and all this does is put it in the document that it should be in so they can be posted. The performance measures these are pretty standard, I would say, performance measures for an IDA. We tried not to get into too much detail. We just don't, some of this is the board making some decisions on what they're looking at, but if you look at the performance measurement categories here, I think they are at the core of what an IDA does, right? Increased private investment and employment opportunities, and how do you measure that, right? So that's what you would be measuring performance on in a year for that category. Implementing policies and procedures that improve operations and advance the mission, right? Some of what you guys are doing today is those policies and procedures there. So you would measure that literally at the end of the calendar year. You would say, well, we looked at our policies in September and we approved these changes. So there's a measurement that you can look at. And then the third one is, support implementation of economic development initiatives throughout the town.
Okay.
So those are the three. They're pretty big benchmarks, right? And as a starting point, essentially, for some performance measures.
Okay.
So that's a summary of those 5 documents. If there are questions, I can answer them.
Yeah, actually, I've got a question pretty much on every one of them, only because reading through them, I just had a couple things. On number 12, on the procurement policy,
Yes.
12B, about having somebody being able to spend over $3,000 without board approval. We can change that, maybe you can up that amount a little bit, but I think the board should be advised of any large expenditure before the expenditure is done.
Yeah, so as of right now, though, it's not changing. We're not changing that.
Well,
right?
it's just saying right here that you can spend over $3,000, or you can appoint somebody to do it over $3,000 without the board approval.
No.
If I read
Where
it
does it say
correctly.
that?
No, it's actually the opposite. It's only, so any procurement of goods and service in an amount greater than 3,000 requires approval of the board. So 3,000 is your benchmark. Anything under 3,000, only that CFO is authorized to do that. But over 3, you're coming here.
Okay, then, and I'm not knocking, but we got a $10,000 bill from your office that was paid without us even knowing what was going on. I found out about it the other day when we got the receipts. And it's over a $3,000 expenditure.
Yes, it is.
Right. So,
Who authorized it? We didn't meet on it. We missed our meeting. I'm not denying you the money.
Right.
I'm denying that we
What?
went against our own policy at that point.
yeah, is that a problem, Kevin? Or is that,
Well, first of all, this policy isn't in effect.
right, okay.
So,
right.
and I'm,
So
if
what's-
their policy out there that says that it's supposed
right,
to be paid
right. Okay,
with
so we didn't
permission.
violate any policy
Didn't follow.
right now, right?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Moving forward then, obviously we'll.
Because I thought that
we'll
was
have
part of
that.
the old policy.
Okay,
Was the
what else you got there, Kevin?
It was okay. I think that one. On the performance measures, on this one here, maybe I misunderstood it. This one here was about the individuals.
Where are you looking at, Kevin?
I gotta find it here.
Okay.
I highlighted some of this. Was it on there? Number 4. Oh, yeah, one of the questions were on the additional questions on the performance statements. The second one was, okay, who has the power to appoint and manage the LIDA? Is that just a question, or is that something the LIDA's got to answer to the state, or are these 5 questions?
So every time you review your performance measurements, which is going to happen in March, these questions are asked of the board and answered at that time. So this is part of that form, okay? And that's what's posted. So we haven't done that yet, but it's there, and you know, that is, someone should be thinking about answering these questions.
Okay.
No.
Okay, I guess that leads to another question, I guess, then, Kevin. Who would that, like, who typically does that?
These things are typically done by administrative staff.
Okay, so.
And brought to the board's attention and responded to in an interactive process
Okay.
with the board.
So,
Which
I think we're kind of inching towards that more and more now, staff, right? I think we're kind of going in that direction, ultimately. So, how does that work? I guess, should we go in that direction, I guess, all right? So we decide that at some point we want to hire a part-time or full-time staff or whatever to man this stuff, whatever, right? This is what their jobs are going to be. This is going to be part of their review.
part of administration is the compliance parts of this.
Right.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
the board is charged with overseeing the agency and implementing and adopting policies, monitoring policies. But
Okay.
needs someone to implement them.
Right?
Right?
Right.
You know, and implementation is different. It's administration of policy.
Right.
So, yeah, so this is a very small part of that, right? But it
Yeah.
is an example of that.
Okay.
You know, I think it's important before this gets posted, you know, that those things do get answered.
Right.
I mean, I don't think these are really hard questions.
Right.
Right? But I think if you're going to, and maybe we don't adopt this today without having these questions answered.
Right.
I think that does, I mean, Kevin's raising a great question, like, well, where are the answers to these
Right,
questions
right.
is really what you're asking.
And I guess that leads to another question.
Can we
like,
give the board homework here?
When
you
we
know?
do decide, if we decide to go in that direction, where we
Yeah.
decide to hire a staff,
Yeah.
how do we determine, you know, like, okay, as a business owner myself, right, when I'm looking for a position, right, like if I don't know, say I'm hiring trainers for my gym or a property manager for my apartment building, I have certain things that I expect of them. I'm hiring a property manager that has experience or whatever. So if we decide to go in that direction, when we get to that point, are we looking for somebody who's got IDA experience?
Yes.
Right? Like, I mean, right? Like, I mean, is that going to be part of the job description?
Yeah.
Because there's certain stuff that's obviously administrative and that you know, secretarial or whatever, those jobs, they don't necessarily have to have IDA. But if we're going to look for somebody to run this, then doesn't this kind of set the parameters, I guess, for when we put out the qualifications?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we need somebody that can obviously do these things or perform these duties. They have to obviously understand what they are.
Well,
So-
I can jump in just a little bit because I know you weren't at the last meeting, but the directive I was given was to reach out to Dave Manjoya specifically.
Yeah.
And see what proposal
What they
would
do
bring
when they look
forward
for- when
from
they
Amherst.
staff
So
theirs, right.
It wasn't create an RFP for that position or
Right.
create a job description. It's let's have that conversation
Right.
and see what they come back with, and then that would catalyst our
Okay,
conversation.
all right, that makes
now
sense.
you only, he's just with, who's he with?
Dave Manjoy is with Amherst IDA.
Okay, did anybody reach out to Clarence to see how they do it?
No, I don't think we have reached out to them yet, no. But, I mean, we could, like I said, it's either one, you know, both are, does Clarence have a staff like Amherst or no?
They have 2, which is the financial person, and then the one who does the legal work.
So it's not-
There's two women.
But are they employees of the IDA, or are they
No,
contracted out?
They're
Okay, right.
similar to what
So
I have.
Amherst really is the only model that we have, or ECIDA as well, but,
Yeah.
right, but I think we'll get more out of Amherst.
You gotta
than
remember,
we will
the
out of
ECIDA has
ECIDA.
18 people working
Right.
for them.
I mean, right.
Where Amherst has 4, well, 3 now.
3, because John's.
Right.
And then Clarence just has me.
Right.
As
Okay.
you own it.
Right. So I think Amherst makes most
Okay,
sense
no, I
to
was
reach
just
out to,
waiting-
because
waiting to
they're,
mention that.
I think, are we, as a board, I guess, I'm asking this question, are we going, if we go in that direction, are we looking to model it more like Amherst, right? Is that what we're
That's
trying
the
to accomplish here?
conversation that
Like,
was
that's the
had, yeah.
ultimate goal, I guess, is, obviously, they're much bigger than we are, and they can afford to staff it with whatever, however many people. We may not need as many people, or, there's not gonna be as much.
Basically one.
Right, you know what I mean, like, that's what I'm saying, so, but we'll model it after their model, so to speak, but not quite as big, right?
There's,
That's what I'm
there's,
getting at.
there's 2 approaches. One is to hire directly, and the other is to contract for those services.
Okay,
So when you're looking, the challenge will be when you're trying to hire someone in this area, is that there's a small pool of people who
right, that's what
understand how to do this.
that's where I was
So,
going, right? How are you gonna find
I
somebody
think
with,
one thing that's, I think that the board could consider is entering into some sort of services agreement.
With
where they
Amherst.
provide you back office admin.
Right.
Right, with
Yeah.
the expertise they have to manage the programs.
Yeah.
And, the agendas, and putting together really the stuff that
I think that
we're,
makes the most sense.
that's, and then doing the calendaring. A lot of what Lynn has done is that's ground stuff that those guys do like that.
Right.
That's ingrained in those,
Yeah.
in how they run it from an administrative
For
standpoint.
the last 15 or 20 years, I've always used Dave Manjoya and Amherst to do our implant studies.
Right.
But now what has happened, when I used to use them for Clarence also, but now Clarence has decided to use Cindy and the Kim, who are going to now do the implant studies, but Dave Manjoya still does my implant
Right.
studies.
So,
I
go
meet
ahead.
with Dave once a week.
Hold on a second.
Gets rid of the HR, gets rid of the HR expense.
Right,
Right.
yes,
And
right.
the employment liability issues,
Yeah.
pension issues, stuff. like
Payroll and all that
Yeah.
stuff, we don't have to do any of that
Yes.
stuff, right? And that's huge, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, and I think that makes more, if we go in that direction and we're gonna hire, I think it would be best to explore that option as our main option, because it is a lot of, like I said, when you get into payroll issues and all that stuff, it's a lot of work, and if you can just contract that out, come to,
Oh, that makes
agree to a
sense.
number,
Especially with
and,
us.
That and the appointment process of the board, if it gets changed over,
right,
we
yeah,
don't have the employee that now is.
correct, that's in limbo, right, yeah, so, okay,
Then you gotta remember, Hamburg has 1 employee. They have the executive director, then they have 1 employee. Cattaraugus County has 1 employee, along with
Right.
the executive director. ECID has 18 employees.
yeah.
We don't have, and neither does Clarence.
Are any of those other employees in Hamburg and Cattaraugus part-time employees, or are they all full-time?
I'm led to believe they're both full-time, Grant.
Right? So, does it make sense, Kevin, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, does it make sense to explore, does ECIDA enter into these type of agreements as well as Amherst? I'm not trying to cut Amherst out, I'm just trying to say, would it make sense, or is that something they probably wouldn't even entertain? I guess I'm just looking at options, that's all. So we have
look,
options.
they have, Paul said it, they have 18 folks
Right.
there, and they've got people that are working in specific areas.
Right.
Of that.
Okay.
Again,
I'm not saying
I
that we're
haven't
gonna
had
go
a
that way, I just,
conversation with John Capolino on that. I would
So,
assume
I
he'd
can
be
jump
open
in
to
because
that, but.
I have had that
Yeah,
conversation.
ideal one, believe it or not, because of my close association with Dave Manjoya, would be Dave Manjoya.
right, yeah, and I know Dave well, I worked well with him.
I talk to David once or twice every week.
Yeah.
And so does Kevin. Kevin's
Right.
the attorney for the
Yeah, I know.
MSBA.
Right.
So that would be the ideal spot.
Right, okay, go ahead, Lynn, what were you gonna say?
That I've had conversations, as we've been evolving these conversations with Lida, with both John with the ECIDA and Dave with Amherst. And, John felt that, same as Dave, same as me, that ECIDA is just a little different. They
Yeah.
likely could figure it out and
Right.
work with this. The structure, though Amherst is bigger, the structure and the way they do business
It's different.
closer to Lancaster than what the ECIDA is. They have
Amherst,
extra
right, okay, I thought you were talking
extra
about ECIDA.
loan programs, and they have a lot of different layers to
Yeah.
what the ECIDA offers. So that's where I think it makes sense to try and
Amherst would be
find something
a better
more
fit.
similar.
Yeah, okay. Anything
To
else,
say
Kevin?
Amherst is more user-friendly?
I would imagine it's probably easier to, because they're smaller, I think that even though Amherst is much bigger than Lancaster when it comes to their IDA, I think that.
Not in the last couple of years, though, Lancaster's really been booming.
No, I know, I'm not trying to cut us short here, but I'm saying I think that they can probably relate to a lot of the projects
Yes, they
that we
can.
do. They've probably done very similar projects, and I think that would make.
Oh,
If I could just point out too,
Yeah.
if you're gonna go with somebody from another IDA, you're gonna have a contact person. Because if all of you are not in one place
Yeah.
that it used to be, you're gonna have to designate somebody for
Yeah,
that
we can do
person to
that.
contact.
Yeah, we can do
So,
that. That's
yeah.
not a problem.
I just talked with Dave the other day, and he's thinking about, the contact would be probably Laura.
Lori.
So I
Lori,
can
she does
jump
all
in
the-
one more time that I spoke with Dave on August 10th. We actually met. He came to Lancaster, talked through where we're at right now, some of the issues that we're seeing, some of the things that we're looking for, what we talked about at our July meeting. He had sent an email. I had just followed up end of August, and he said he wanted to give me an update on what our service thoughts and fee proposal. He had some of his main staff out on vacation. He's hoping this was August 30th to get something the next couple of weeks. So I would
Okay.
expect that
Yeah.
as soon as I get anything from him, it'll be forwarded to the board. And that way, we're not talking about who we think is gonna be the person who,
Right.
let them propose something to us, and
Yeah.
then let's evaluate that and see if that's gonna work for
I think
us.
the contact person should probably be right here in the town. Lisa goes
No,
to her.
I think
she
she's
can get
referring to a contact person over there.
over there.
Right,
You know what might be,
Yeah.
I just mentioned to Kevin, might be advantageous is that, I just met with David yesterday, okay? Have him come here. Have David come here just to tell you what he will do for us.
Right, yeah,
And then it'll
certainly,
be
when we,
self-explanatory.
I think when we get to that point,
Okay.
I think it would make sense. I think that,
Yep.
once we get there, we're not there
You're
yet,
right.
but
You're
we
absolutely
obviously
right.
have to discuss this. I mean, we're discussing it now, but we have to have a committee meeting and sit down and actually, decide what we're gonna do with this, so.
Wheels are in motion.
Yeah, right, exactly, right? But we got it, this is not the time right now, that's one step
I
down,
agree.
I think, Paul, that's all.
Whenever you're ready,
Right.
I'll do that.
Okay. Anything else? On the agenda, let me see, hold on.
I-
So Kevin, can we adopt those first 5? You think we can adopt them as one resolution?
Lynn has something to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Did you want me to talk about 6 and 7?
Yeah, we're gonna get there. I just wanted to make sure, I just want to put this to bed. So, 1 through 5, we can adopt as one,
Yes.
and then, okay,
One
6
resolution.
6 and 7, okay, go ahead, Lynn.
So as per the conversation that we had in the July meeting about looking for a possible economic feasibility study, if you would go to those performance measures, that would tie in with that number 3, that support the implementation of economic development initiatives, maintain and enhance a high-quality living environment in the town of Lancaster and the region, and then the number of meaningful collaborative efforts with the town of Lancaster, Village of Lancaster, and Village of Depew. I think that this is something that we could do that would not only help us in guiding our performance measures, knowing what the potential is, but it would be a tremendous asset to the municipalities. And I'm speaking from a municipal leadership standpoint, that it's often the data and the studies that lead to whether it's bringing in businesses or finding grant funding, and it is amazing the difference of being able to say, well, this is the company that we brought in, this is the data source that they have, this is why they think this is the industry or the business that should come in. So that was the idea behind it.
Okay.
This was a little more challenging to put together. Again, where a staff member would typically do that, and
Right.
I'm writing this, so I am totally open to any comments. This could be a draft, this can be tabled, but it's just a starting point for everybody to take a look at. I took a lot of the project description and purpose out of the comprehensive plan. In terms of scope of services, and I know that you had brought up about the zoning work that had been done. Who did the town contract with for that zoning work?
I'd have to find out, but I know it was done recently. That was redone only like a year and a half ago.
What did they
The
do?
rezone.
They did a rezone. And
The whole town came through, they did a complete rezone
Oh,
of
they
what,
did?
for agriculture and everything.
Are you
Okay,
talking about the master plan?
The master plan,
yeah.
yeah.
That was
They
done
up-
in 18.
Okay, 2018.
and we're looking to
No, didn't they
redo.
just redo it again?
No, they're looking to do it again, but they haven't done
They
it yet. I
didn't?
know they did the update to the zoning code in the book, the code book, but not the master
Not
plan.
master plan, okay.
And I think that for me, it's helpful for someone else to have eyes on what we're doing in the village and say, okay, this is what you thought was good maybe a couple years ago. Here's what we see. Take it or leave it, right? This doesn't change anything at the town level, but it's a service that we can provide to the town while we're also using that data that we can say to Paul, say like, look at, this is what they're recommending. This is the type of industry. This is the potential that we have. Go find this. This is what we want.
Okay, so do we want to move forward with
this?
this proposal, or do we want to table it? Or
Are you
is it ready to go
comfortable with
out?
the language?
Kevin?
Okay, the board meeting is starting now.
Right, okay. So, okay, let's do that, and then we'll, I guess we're not going to get to
We
that.
can get to
during the
the,
meeting.
we'll finish it up.
Pledge allegiance to the
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Lisa, can you take the roll, please?
Grant Casani,
Here.
Kevin Leemaster,
Here,
Member Widow,
Here.
Chair Widow.
Here. Okay, as we were just saying before, we have some policies and procedures that we updated. The governance committee, Lynn Ruda met with Kevin. What's that? Oh,
minutes.
oh, okay. Sorry, I'm on the wrong page. You're pointing to it, and I'm like, where's that now? I didn't realize I'm on the wrong page. Okay, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
Motion to approve as presented.
Okay, second by, motion by member Ruda, second by member Leemaster. Lisa, please, on the roll.
Member Casoni,
Yes.
Member Leemaster,
yes,
Member Widow,
Yes.
Chair Widow.
Am I allowed to vote on this, Kevin? I wasn't here.
Yes.
I can do, yes, I can do it on it,
Yeah,
yes,
you can vote,
yes.
you can.
Right,
It's fine.
okay. All right, bills and communications, any communications need to be read in?
No.
I'm not aware of any.
No, ma'am.
No? Okay. Treasurer's report, Mike?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I have forwarded the report as part of the agenda. It's showing last 2 months' activity from the last meeting, July 15th through the end of August, reflecting it as of August 31st, a balance in the checking account of $1,613,436.09. This also includes activity, vouchers and invoices that were paid in August due to the cancellation. They were reviewed and also reviewed and signed off by Treasurer Mr. Tadaro. And it does include one invoice of $10,024 for legal services. You know, being over the threshold when you approve the treasurer's report, you may want to note that you're also retroactively approving payment of the bills for August.
Okay.
There's also, due to the timing of the meeting, we didn't have vouchers prepared for September, so that would include the CFO services, consulting services, and legal services invoice for July. That will also need a resolution to authorize paying that bill. That way we don't have to wait till the next meeting to pay that once approved. Some other items I included on my report are pilots. I did contact the assessor's office, who provided me a list of all the pilot exemptions for the new year, 22-23. That's all been set up. The school pilots, Alden, Lancaster, and Depew, have all received their pilot calculations. As I understand, they've reviewed them and everything looks correct, so they'll be printing and sending their own bills. So they take care of the bills in-house, but those calculations are done. I also have preliminary calculations done for the town and county pilots, because the financial director for the town needed a reasonable estimate for their property tax calculation. They're preparing the budget now. So essentially, once the tax rates are approved for the town and county, we'll just plug them into the spreadsheet and they'll be ready to print the bills and out they'll go. So those are already, I know there were some issues last year, but this year we're already set to move ahead with that.
Okay.
There was one issue with the Village of Depew that came up when I contacted them back in May about the calculations. They indicated they had already done the calculations and sent bills out on their own. But then recently, one of the properties contacted Dave Brown, knowing having him as a contact, and he's a consultant for you. So Chairman Fedoli had authorized him to look into the matter and found out that the calculation was incorrect. Actually, they were underbilled. So we're going to work with the clerk treasurer at the Village of Depew, make sure that going forward, that in all cases, that the CFO for Lida is able to review those calculations before they're finalized and mailed out. So that'll be taken care of, but that was just one little glitch that came up this year. And then the last thing is with the budget. That came up that it has to be filed November 1st, so this is part of my learning curve. So it'll have to be approved by the board at the October meeting next month. So I'll be working to prepare a budget. It has to go, as I understand, talking to Dave Brown, it has to go to the town, board for at least 20 days prior to approval by the IDA. So I will get a draft to the town, and then working with you over the next month, I'll send a copy of a draft budget that I put together individually to each board member, and any feedback you have, or if there's anything you want to see included in next year's budget that might not be included this year, such as some of the discussions you had earlier during the work session, get that feedback to me so that I can, what we're looking for is to have a budget that should hopefully be approved without any concerns at the next meeting. So we want to try and, if we need to have a finance committee meeting with less than a quorum, we may look at that. I'll reach out to the treasurer and discuss that with him as well. So next year, now knowing the timeline, I'll get started sooner on that, probably in August, so that you could have a draft budget before you at this meeting in September. Okay?
Thanks,
Any
Mike.
questions for me?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to compliment to Michael and I. We worked on bringing all the pilots current. There was one company that Michael and I worked on. I did some digging, and then they're current. Am I correct, that Michael? Now
Yep,
that
they're
one
current.
pilot?
They also
all
paid
our
the
pilots
penalty.
are now current.
Okay.
Oh, that includes the 4 that were kind of floating around there, or
Well, this was an issue related to the village pilot.
just the village? Okay.
Nice job, Michael.
Super.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Mike.
you.
So we need a resolution then to approve this payment for Kevin? Is that
Yeah,
what you're saying?
resolution to accept the report,
Right.
including retroactive approval of the bills paid in August.
Okay.
And then you may also include approval of the new invoice for legal services for,
Okay, so Kevin, how do we have to do that? Do we have to, you can do it as one motion?
Resolutions were prepared in your
I
packet.
think there's
Right,
a
but
resolution.
we're doing them
for
separate?
One invoice, but not for
Okay,
the
so-
second invoice, correct?
And I got 2 invoices.
Okay, yep. So I need a motion then to approve the treasurer's report. Let's start with
Yeah,
that.
why don't you start
Okay.
with that? That's a good idea.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Member Ruda, second by Member Gazzoni.
Member Pizzoni,
Yes.
Member Lemaster,
Yes.
Member Ruda,
Yes.
Chair Phil.
Yes. Okay, and now the motion to approve the payment for invoice 2034552.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Member Ruda. That was, it's on the thing there, Kevin, or Grant, I see your look on your face. That's the resolution to pay the Kevin's bill. Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Second by Member Lemaster. Lisa, please take the roll.
Member Pizzoni,
Yes.
Member Lemaster,
Yes.
Member Ruda,
Yes.
Chair Phil.
Yes. Okay, we don't have anything from the Audit and Finance Committee, but the Governance Committee, we had,
Was there
Member-
another item, Mike, that needed to be approved on?
retroactive approval of the bill paid in August, which included.
Oh, okay. All right, so-
For $10,000.
oh, that
Is
one,
that
okay.
not 2034552? It's not.
No, that's the one I just got.
That's the current, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's right, Mike, I think Mike.
So that's not the one you were speaking of?
The August invoice is 2033675.
Okay, so I need a motion to approve that as well?
So, okay, that's the one, second, move the motion.
Okay, motion by Member Lemaster.
Second.
Second by Member Ruda. Lisa, please take the roll.
Member Pizzoni,
Yes.
Member Lemaster,
Yes.
Member Ruda,
Yes.
Chair Phil.
Yes. Okay, now, we have a governance committee. We did some policy changes, we did some policy updates. Member Ruda met with our legal counsel, and they came up with some changes just to update our policies and procedures. We're going to approve them, the first 5 on the agenda: the amended investment policy, procurement policy, property disposal guidelines, mission statement and performance measures, and the statement of duties of responsibilities of the board. Can I get a motion to approve those policies?
Were we gonna hold up number 4 on the questions for, or do you wanna put that through?
No, I don't-
For the performance measures?
It's a form right now.
Right.
Because we have to fill it out.
Right.
So I think what we can do is adopt it as the performance
Is the form?
measures.
Right.
Okay.
And then we have to address those questions.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
do it as a form.
Yep. Okay, I need a motion to approve the 5 policy updates.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Member Ruda,
Second.
second by Member Gazzoni. Lisa, please take the roll.
Member Gazzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Chair Jones?
Yes. Now, item number 6 there, request for proposal for the economic feasibility study. We didn't really get into that. Lynn, would you like to?
Sure, yeah. So
Talk
if you
about
have
that.
it in front of you, I was saying in the last few minutes of the work session that this was my best stab at what I thought should go out. I've looked at Grand Island did something similar, Amherst has done something similar, the Village of Lancaster has done an economic feasibility study. So kind of trying to pick and see what was going to be the best for Lida, with the goal of understanding what the potential for business growth and development is within the region, Village of Depew, Village of Lancaster, and Town of Lancaster, that is supported by Lida. About the project description and purpose, a lot of the information I took from the comprehensive plan, and then I linked the plan there. The scope of services, it's something that we've been talking about at a governmental level that post-COVID is definitely having an impact. Having them look at what sort of office space is currently out there in the town and 2 villages, and what the risk for those to not be office spaces anymore as people are working from home. To be looking at like what a good target industry would be for Lancaster. I know Amherst kind of has been devoted to health and human services, and they've really worked to build up those corridors within the medical field. I don't necessarily think that's the place for Lancaster, but what is? You know,
Right.
for an agency to come in and say there's a lot of potential for Lancaster to be that niche for this industry, and this is how you would grow along your main corridors. These would be supportive and in tandem with the zoning, and if there were any kind of red flags that an agency would come in, they would have those comments within the proposal to say, you know, if you updated, just similar to what the Village of Lancaster is doing with our form-based code right now, trying to get and support more business within that downtown core meant we needed to change to a code that we didn't all even necessarily knew existed. So it's having those outside agencies kind of look from their perspective, looking at the Agra district. What are we doing, and what's the future of that, and where could that go? So I am open to whatever the board would like to do with this. If you're happy with the language as it's presented, if we wanted to tweak or change anything,
I don't have any problems
Well,
with it, but
the one question I had on it, I mean, looking at it, we discussed it a little bit, so I understood more of what she was looking for, what we're looking for as a firm, would be, do you think the contact should be you, and or should it be Lida here, so that there's no confusion as to what?
I'm not, yeah, I wasn't sure. I know
well,
that.
I think it should come to the board.
Well, no, but she's got to go into her office over in Depew.
In Lancaster.
Lancaster is here, have it go to Lisa's office.
It could
She
do- I
can
mean,
keep
that's
us
totally
informed,
fine
you know,
to-
keep everybody informed, but this way there's no confusion as to where.
I'm open to however you all see that works
Yeah.
the smoothest. I want to just make sure
You
that
know,
if
if there's any questions, you know, they come to you, she can make sure they're forwarded to you or whatever. It come up, there might be a question on this.
I don't always love having the middle person, only because it just takes more time and then
Right,
someone's
right,
trying
well,
to convey.
if
But
this
we
is
wanna
written,
change
this
the
is all gonna be
address-
done in writing anyways, right? So they're gonna be mailing a form to you?
And it also says that if there's any questions within 10 days, that they would be asking or sending questions out. So I just want to make sure that we're as responsive to those questions, which I'm sure will be coming in. They did for the attorney services too. But however you're most comfortable.
Well, we can do.
Can I comment on a legal aspect of
Sure.
this?
Yeah.
So when the agency does a procurement for services, we are subject to the procurement lobbying law. And so you have to designate one person for contacts, right? And this is a law that it's actually, this is an addition to our procurement policy, actually. You might have seen it in there. We've always been bound by it, but it's now in the policy as well to reflect that. But we have a designated contact for RFPs so that when interested parties want to talk about getting the work, right, they're really only supposed to talk to one person, and it's supposed to level the playing field so that there's not, you know, the old way of doing things, if you
Right.
will. So
Okay.
I'm just pointing it out that if you change who your contact is, then that person is going to be the only person who is contacted. They've got to keep a record of all contacts that are made on the RFP and be able to answer those questions on the RFP. It should be someone with knowledge of
Okay.
the process, that's all.
Okay, well, then could we
I guess it
leave
makes
for
sense for you to
as
do
that,
it.
but then make it
Sure.
so that the town hall is where
Absolutely.
the mailed-in ballots come to,
think
or the
it
mailed-in
needs to be in this
proposals come to?
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Say
I
that
think
again?
just that,
We
yeah.
just, we just have everything mailed here,
Sure,
but any
yeah.
verbal or whatever would go to you directly.
That would be
Right.
great, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Because this way there's no
Yeah.
confusion, because otherwise
No.
they're gonna say, where's the IDA?
Right.
Some of them might if they're not
Right,
here.
right, okay. So with that being said, are we
So
prepared to move
let me
forward?
just make sure that I understand the correction. It would be changed to member Lancaster Industrial Development Agency, and then
It
town,
would be, yeah, I guess, the town of Lancaster, LIDA,
sure.
and this address,
Yep,
and her email address could stay the same if they've got a contactor, right? We don't have to change
Yes.
that.
Right.
So it would just, that the actual proposals would come to the town.
right. And I did want to comment, Lisa caught that the year was incorrect for the proposal. I'm like living in a
Yes,
time warp right now, so I did update
can't
that.
type,
and
so I'm not gonna
change that
worry
to
about that.
2022, and thank you for catching that.
Okay,
So with that change, would we be comfortable approving?
I'm okay with
Yeah,
it.
we-
Yeah,
And there's no, I mean, an RFP is, we could get them and not like what they have to offer, and then,
yeah, there's nothing that's binding us to it, so.
No,
right.
I just, only with the zoning and everything, I thought it was done more recently.
Okay,
No problem.
the only other question is, did everyone look at the rating sheet? And are we comfortable with this is how we would like to rate them?
Not like anything, it's a base anyways, and you
Right.
can, you just move off of that if you think there's something more that has to be looked at, but as a base of a, I've got no problem with it.
yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have to approve these two separately or just one, as is?
Well, I think you have the document in front of you, and you guys have spoken about amending two specific areas. I think if someone made a motion to
Amend first.
approve the request for proposal,
With the-
issuance of the request for proposal with those two changes, that would
changes?
be the, way to
Okay,
do that.
so I need a motion then to approve the RFP with the amended changes.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve by Member Ruda, second by Member Lee Master. Lisa, please take the roll.
Member Gitzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee Master?
Yes,
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Chair Joe?
Yes. Okay, unfinished business, Lucas James project. Paul, want to talk on that?
I refer that to,
Would you like me to speak on that?
yeah,
Okay.
The attorney,
Yeah.
Don Alessi, has been driving me out of my mind. So I referred him now to Kevin, and Kevin is now doing the Lucas James project
Okay.
regarding attorney to attorney, not for business development.
Gotcha.
Kevin, that's all.
Correct. So we're still working with the applicant on trying to get their application in a form to present to the board. We're missing pieces of the application, and there's some question about the eligibility of the project. We don't know enough about the tenants that they're proposing. We've asked for that information several times. I have had a direct communication with the project developer on this issue. So, you know, we're in a holding pattern on this. We haven't said no, but, you know, we have an application process, and that's what it's there for.
Right.
So, you know, I hope they do come back and provide us with more information.
I had a phone call yesterday from Don Alessi again at 8 o'clock at night, and said to me that he is preparing that, and I said, well, you better send it to Kevin, not to me.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Okay, a new business, Paul?
Yeah, we have several. I met with a company called SPARZ, S-P-A-R-Z. They're located in Terrace Boulevard in Depew, and they're talking about putting up a new 25 to 30,000 square foot building on Gunville and Genesee Street on the side where there is no sewers. And so we're meeting with them. I introduced them to all the financings of 504 and everything else. and his name is Ron, I'll spell the last name, Kostorowski, so I don't have an application yet, but they are meeting with all the financial people, so that's gonna be a new construction business. Actually, what they do, they're an electronic engineering, design, and manufacturing company, and they'll be right on Genesee Street next to Gunbell.
Okay.
We also met with Joe Peachy and his son to talk about a new brewery that's going on vacant land right across the street from the Lancaster Country Club. We met with him to talk about a brewery, which I talked to Kevin about, and once we get the application, we'll know that whether or not, because in breweries, we consider those manufacturing, so we're allowed to do that,
Right.
but we want to make sure that what they present to us doesn't have a lot of retail in it, okay?
Right?
And we met, I had a 2-hour meeting with all the people from New York State Electric and Gas regarding all their benefits that they can provide regarding all grants and so on and so forth. So that's the other one. And then we just had a meeting with, not a meeting, conversations with Mark Moto, M-O-T-O, City Limit Moto. They're located at 1531 Walden Avenue, and they are moving to 3291 Walden Avenue, Village of Depew. We can't help them because they're leasing the building, so I did help them with some financings and so on and so forth. So you got 4 or 5 different projects that are popping their heads up right away. So that's it, Mr. Chair.
Anything else?
Any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
Paul, on the brewery,
Yes.
have, across the street, have they looked into their liquor license yet?
No, we're waiting for that application to come in.
Okay.
They have met, though. I think they met with the town board or the planning board, though.
The issue is the state has, and also across the street,
Yeah.
at Kitty Corner, well, next to them would be a church, 1,000 feet to the main entrance.
There was one other one, though, right on the corner of Genesee and Gunville, Motivar, which used to be the Buffalo Filter, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
They're talking about a large expansion also, and we're waiting for that, for them to set up the meeting so that we can go out there and give them the application. So that's the other one. So that's 4 or 5 new projects that are coming aboard, Mr. Chair. And I'm happy to address any questions.
Paul, what's this, Diesel Gustav? What is this?
That's gonna be Kevin.
Okay.
And the Premier Dog one,
Yeah.
that was one I got a phone call, well, actually Liz got the phone call, and what they were looking for was that their attorney was looking for the copy of the pilot that we provided for the Premier. And I'm pretty sure we did all that. I refer, that is one that, the old attorney did.
Okay.
Jennifer Strong.
Jennifer.
So I referred them to them, and that's been taken care of. Premier Dog has been taken care of. The other one, I guess I'm gonna refer that to Kevin on Gustav, right?
Yes,
Augusta?
and, I would also point, Lisa got an inquiry on this, I think last week. So I, to be honest with you, I have not read through
Okay.
the documents. I got them yesterday.
Okay.
When I saw it on the agenda, and, Lisa's shared some of that information with me, but I have not
Not had a chance to go through it yet?
reviewed
Okay.
what they're asking for. I mean, this is listed as a lease subordination agreement, but I don't have the details
Okay.
to really comment on it at this point.
Okay.
So, Lisa, do you have a better handle?
I sent you everything that they sent to me.
And Kevin, on that one, she mentioned to me on Premier Dog is that they haven't really closed that yet. And it's not, but I referred her to Jennifer Strong. So that's taken care of.
Okay, all right,
And I informed
These are
Liz
two
right away.
different things, though.
right.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Any questions, I'll be happy to address them.
So that one just kind of popped up, nobody knows what it is. All right.
Yeah.
Do we know where it is?
That's the dog control.
Yeah, oh,
No, the
it's part of
diesel.
the dog.
Diesel Gustav.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the Premier dog.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing?
Yep,
Oh, all right.
Which one?
Okay.
yeah.
So they're, and that's what I was getting a little confused.
Yeah, I don't-
Was it separate or is it,
right.
so
Okay.
they want to work with, okay.
Yeah,
So-
I think according to Jen Strong, she said they were actually closed by Rich Grimm before she became the IDA attorney last year. So she did not work on it, that's why she forwarded it to me.
So is this something that we have to send to Rich Grimm now?
No.
I sent it to them.
Oh, we don't have, okay,
No, I think that what I don't know at this point with certainty is what they're asking the board to do.
gotcha, okay.
I have to be,
precise.
Honest with you.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no, that's all right, right.
I don't have
That's all
enough
right. Yeah,
time
don't-
to absorb the
yeah,
documentation.
we're not expecting
If I
you to
had
shoot from the hip.
A little bit more
Right.
time, I
Right.
would, and I feel bad about that, because if they need something done in the next 30 days, we're not meeting until then.
Right.
And I just don't know that.
Right.
I don't know that.
Okay, so you can, when you're gonna review this, I take it, and then when you review it, you'll let us know?
I
what
would
they're-
advise the board as to the next steps
Right,
on
okay.
that, yes.
All right.
My phone call came from the SBA people, the attorneys from the SBA,
Yeah.
because they want to close it, okay? It didn't come from the Premier's attorney, it came from the SBA, because they want to close that, and they want the bank to close and everything, and they don't understand why, so that's why I referred to Jennifer, so.
Okay,
Well,
But-
so if what they're asking us to do is to subordinate the lease for financing with no
Right.
new benefit being
Right.
offered by the IDA, that is very similar to the last time we did this, which was
Yeah,
last
right.
month. For Fairways, I think it might have been. I'm not sure. There was a
yeah,
Sweeney.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
Don Sweeney's
Don
project.
Sweeney's
That's
project.
exactly right. It was the village, that project. So
right.
that's the same basic concept. If the board is willing to entertain approving that type of a consent here, subject to me confirming that that's exactly what we
What they're-
need.
right.
That maybe that makes some sense so that we can get something into the
He didn't
record.
send me anything other than the request
Right.
for all those documents.
Right.
He didn't send me a form or anything.
Would
So-
it be possible if you said that if the document's the same, it's just the release, no changes, no anything?
Mm-hmm.
If you let the board members know and we could contact you to say it was okay to go forward, or?
We can't vote that way. You can't
do it.
approve things that way.
Well, no, I
So,
just want, yeah.
but we
Or
can
we
just,
have
we
an
can give you
emergency meeting.
permission to move forward on it just as a board, correct?
yes, I mean, you could grant authorization to move forward with a subordination of lease document,
Right.
based on council approval
Right.
of that. So what we do on these, this is a very typical thing, and some agencies will simply delegate the authority to do this on a running basis. They'll
Right.
say either in their inducement resolution that these kind of consents to mortgages
Right.
is authorized automatically. I don't know that it's not in your documents, by the way.
Right.
Because I haven't seen the documents.
Right.
This wasn't closed by my office. I don't know what the leases say.
Right.
It could be authorized already, frankly. That would be part of the due diligence we would do, is to look at that. But absent that, some boards have said, when you get these kind of requests in at an administrative level, where the agency's not giving any new benefits and is only asked to sign on to a mortgage because it's part of a project, it's rudimentary in some ways,
Right.
ministerial,
Right,
right? And
yeah.
it doesn't need a board action, because all you're doing is adding that, maybe you're changing a mortgage or something. It's not your money.
Right, it's not
just-
changing any of the-
It's the
right.
company just changing their
Cost of the
finance
project,
structure.
nothing's changing.
Exactly.
Right.
So sometimes you can do that as a standing, we could have a resolution before the board that says, when these things come in, these kind of modifications, just go and do them.
Right.
Right? And then
Yeah.
get reported back to the board on that.
Right.
But the reason I bring that up is because a situation like this is very tough, right? We get the request, I think, right before Labor Day, right? I mean,
Right.
and it just doesn't funnel through the system fast enough.
Right.
And that's not anybody's fault. But it does put a project in I think the goal here is to advance these things along without becoming a bump in the road.
Right.
Right? And the difficulty sometimes with getting approvals is if we don't do it today, then you don't do it for 30 days.
Right.
Right?
So,
Unless you call a meeting.
Could we
So-
yeah, that's-
authorize this
You
one?
know what happens with this one though, because it's very confusing, okay? Because the bank's taking this is what we call an SBA 504 program, 50-40-10, and they take a second mortgage. So the bank is taking the first, and what Kevin's talking about is the SBA 504 is taking a second mortgage.
Right.
So that's why he's looking for all these documents before we sign up. It doesn't have to come back to the board.
Right.
Because we're
So-
not giving anything away.
Right. So I
All we're
think
doing is
Kevin's-
just signing in.
Kevin's, go ahead.
So could we
Second.
authorize you to go forward if all that
Yes.
stayed the same today?
Yes.
Right.
So then
That
it would
you
be
could do
clean.
that. That's what I'm suggesting,
Right.
is
All right.
if
Yeah.
this is a
Okay, I'm okay with
subordination
that.
of your
You're okay
leasehold
with that.
I'm trying
interest,
to
we
find
can
out.
do that. No, it's good, Kevin. I
Right.
appreciate
Okay,
that.
then,
That's,
yeah, do that then, Kevin, and obviously keep us informed if that's what.
yeah,
it
we
is.
can report back on all of those
Yeah.
that way. So,
Okay.
but that's the thing that maybe the committee should, or the board should think about, is whether you want to do that on a regular basis
Yeah.
going forward. I don't think you have to decide that today.
Right.
But I do think it would
Probably
make
should do
those
that.
kind
I
of
mean, it
things
makes sense.
a little
Right.
easier to administer.
Yeah,
And I talked to the company's very, very happy with what we're doing, so.
Right.
It's not something we have to set fire to.
right, okay,
Should we resolve to do that, to give permission?
Yes.
yeah.
I can't hear you.
Yes,
Yeah, we're-
we got it. Should, right.
I'm gonna make a motion
Yeah.
that we turn around
Yeah.
upon his approval,
Yeah.
that this goes through.
Okay. Motion,
I made the motion.
motion, second?
Second.
Second by member Ruda. Lisa, please take the roll.
Member Gitzon?
Yes.
Member Leemaster?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Chair Cadola?
Yes. Okay. Any public comments?
I had
You
a
have-
few things, I guess, under new business. I wanted to check, in the calendar that we had created, we had said October would be governance committee meeting, look at the rest of the policies and the governance committee charter. Are we prepared to set up a meeting to do that? Is that, you think, would be the logical next step still, or should we move that within the calendar?
I missed the first part, the important part of the dates.
We just have
said
that blocked
October.
under
She said
October.
Right.
So
So-
October's here, yeah. I mean, that's a board decision.
So.
That's fine.
We'll
Yep.
schedule a governance committee
Yeah.
meeting. And then is this going to become, should I put, Mike, in September, that a finance committee may meet with the CFO to be looking at a proposed budget? Is that something that we're going to schedule and becomes,
I think that would make
Okay.
sense, like a paragraph, and then I'd want to get feedback.
Okay.
What we would need for next year.
Okay.
One thing you might want to do is reach out to Dave, because with him not here and everything, he's on the finance
Oh, Dave, yeah.
for now. So we might have to plug somebody in.
Yeah, we might have to figure that
I
out,
don't-
because
I
I don't know.
don't know
what-
how he's gonna
yeah,
feel
he's-
whether or not he's-
Yeah, he might not be coming back for a while still, so.
how does that work?
How many committee members do you have?
7.
Is it three? No,
It's-
finance is
No,
everybody?
finance, there's
Three.
3.
There's 3 on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who else is on that?
Well, I mean, you
think
have
it's
2
Frank.
members.
Frank.
of
I mean, if we can do it, 2
Okay.
or 3, it
So
don't
Frank
matter.
and I
I just
can-
wanted to mention that he's with.
Yeah,
with-
Frank and I
Yeah.
can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay.
And then in October, we had slated working on getting contracts for the following year, attorney, CFO, engage the auditor, CFO submits proposed budget. So who's going to do that?
What do you mean? Say that again?
So so that we're able to have contracts and get those in line, so that we're able to start January 1, 2023 with all the approvals, and we're not having that bump. So.
You mean like committee-wise?
Or member-wise? Again, this is where staff will.
Right, so,
Historically, that used to be the attorney that would do that. Jen Strong did all that. That's why we didn't have a staff. Jen would do that.
Create
so,
a contract for herself.
yeah, but she couldn't do that though, right? I don't think she could do that, so,
Well, not anymore, but.
right. Well, no, I mean, but it probably isn't even, it probably isn't even right for her to do that. So, so I would say we have to bring that to a committee. I would say we do it in committee. Right?
I
mean,
just
we'd
want to
have
put it,
right.
it's not till October, I just want to put it on the radar
Right.
so that we're always looking ahead and planning and working, so that when we
Right.
get to
Okay.
October, we're ready to go.
We have the
You guys
framework.
can't
in-
vote. The new board, if there is one, does it at their organizational meeting. So you can have all those agreements and contracts submitted, but you won't vote on who's gonna be the attorney next year.
Right. That's
I
going to be
mean,
the
if
new.
you-
But to have
whoever the
something
board is.
prepared.
No, but I mean, yeah, we got to
Yeah.
have everything in
So
place.
we don't hit the same roadblock.
Yeah, so we don't have,
that
right, so we don't have the same problem we had this year where we changed everything in,
Yeah, but we've got
February.
paperwork here pretty much of what we did eventually here, so we can kind of
Here's
just
the
look at
smooth
that.
plan.
and-
where is that stuff now? Is it in your office, Lisa?
What's that?
The stuff, Kevin,
Yeah, we
the stuff
have
you're
everything.
saying, right?
Okay, yeah.
Right, so, right, you have everything in your office for when we did all this stuff back in, what, January or February?
Well, everybody was new. I don't know, Jen, I think was assuming she was coming back, so she did her own. You all voted at the organizational meeting who you want to have do what. So were there contracts there? I think too. I don't, with the CFO, they didn't have one because they thought.
Yeah, because they
Pam was
resigned,
gonna
right, because
stay.
Pam
So-
resigned.
I
so-
think-
Yeah,
I
so
might-
there wasn't a CFO contract.
I might have some
Wasn't-
contracts at home. I've
Right.
got a file in my basement. Let me
Okay.
look to see, because I took a lot of that
Okay.
contractual things.
So I guess though, Lynn, going back to your original point though, I mean, we could do this stuff, but like Lisa said, the new board is going to make these decisions, right? So from our side of things, what are you proposing we do? Like, you know, how, if the new board's going to take action on it, what are we going to do ahead of time? I mean, there's really not a whole lot we can do except list out what we're looking for, it's services.
But make sure examples of contracts are in place for them to use, so they're not doing what we're doing right now.
Gotcha, okay.
That's the major.
That's, okay.
Which leads to the next question that we discussed before is, how do we make it, is there a way to make it so that this board is rolling? Meaning just.
Yeah, that's
just
something
one or
that
two-
Kevin, I think, would have to answer. How do we stagger appointments?
That is the
Like,
town
or
board.
terms? Okay, so that's the town board that has to do that? Okay. So I can have a conversation with Councilmember Leary on that, and if they want to put something together for the reorg meeting in January. So,
I think that would help make Lida more sustainable, for
Absolutely.
sure.
right?
Even if it's a 3-year where it just.
Yeah, right,
1, 2,
right,
3,
stagger out the
and we can
terms,
start
right.
alphabetically where I'm 1, 2, or just to get it started.
Right. So,
Okay.
all right, I will reach out to Councilmember Leary to start working on that.
And then I have two
then-
last comments and I'm done. Just that Brazen Brewery is now open, so it's one of the Lida projects, so hopefully you get to go see that and enjoy. And our November meeting is on Veterans Day. I just wanted to bring that up.
So we're gonna have to obviously change that. Look at my calendar here.
Thursday before?
Actually, I think we did already.
Did we?
I thought we moved it.
Oh, did we?
It is, what did?
When did we move
I don't
it to?
have it changed either in my calendar. Okay, so it's for the 18th.
Thank you.
Okay,
Site will tell us, hold on.
Yeah.
I didn't have it in my
November,
calendar.
we went to the 18th.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and then the next, is that it then?
Yep.
What's the new date?
Anybody else?
November 18th at 3:30.
This is 17th.
All right, our next meeting is gonna be on October
Yeah, October
14th.
14th.
That's all,
And
that's
the
all I
18th is
have.
November.
Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
moved by member Ruda,
Second.
second by member Gazzoni. Lisa, please take the roll.
Member Itzoni?
Yes.
Member Lee-Master?
Yes.
Member Ruda?
Yes.
Chair Joe?
Yes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
For all that work you did on that.
Yeah.
You're the organization person.
Oh, the questions? I got my little, well, and it was my, I'm looking at this, going, okay, what are we doing with this paper? Rebuilding. Yeah, well, we'll answer the questions and turn them in, and we'll take the best questions and put them in the report. The best,
I usually go to the garage. Come on.
she's gonna do it.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, have a good
Okay,
weekend,
buddy, no
you
problem. Thank you, man.
Mike, I gotta sign those checks.
No, we don't have, vouchers haven't been processed yet. Frank still has to sign
Just call
off,
me to come and sign
so
them.
I will let you know.
Okay.
Your August one.
What do you do for September?
Frank